Welcome to Digital Waves here at Tribes Amstel. Today here with me is Quinten Selhorst, the founder and may I say CEO of Felyx.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
An e-scooter sharing platform currently live in Amsterdam and Rotterdam here in the Netherlands.
Only in Amsterdam, but we're going to launch soon in Rotterdam in about 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah.
We'll get back to that soon. So we're in this room, a bit of a history for you.
It is.
This is where you taped your first video commercial?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So before we had any scooters operational in Amsterdam, we needed to show the crowd what we would like to do, and we were busy with a crowdfunding campaign. Mm-hmm. So we needed to make sure that we had a commercial to put out there in order to raise the money we needed. And this was one of the rooms where we actually had the commercial being shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So good ground for you, so I hope you feel welcome today.
I am, yeah.
And on that note, a slight congratulations would be welcome as well. You're named by Wired, one of the most influential tech magazines in the world, I would say, as one of Europe's 100 hottest startups.
Yeah, correct.
So how did that happen?
Well, I don't know exactly how it happened because I wasn't there when they made the choice in terms of the different startups. But what I do know is that I think we have been able to show that we were capable of raising quite a lot of funding in the last 2 years.
How much?
In total 4.1 million so far, and we also did it with partly debt financing, which makes it really attractive for informal investors which are investing on the holding company. And we were able to show that we were capable of scaling up the company in terms of the commercial side very rapidly. And I think that those two ingredients were one of the most important reasons why we were one of the 100 best startups in Europe, according to Wired.
Yeah. Happy with the article as well?
I was very happy. I was very pleased with it. Unfortunately, the information in the article was not 100% correct. It was a little bit outdated. But yeah.
Other than that,
very, very proud to be there. Yeah.
So you were just mentioning debt financing. We had an interview quite recently with Leapfunder, which does convertible notes, but also equity funding. So how does debt financing for a startup work?
Well, I think one of the advantages we have is that we have actual collateral in terms of the assets, the scooters, which provides a certain amount of value. And that allows us to finance with the crowd the electric scooters we need. And we can do that by issuing bonds. And that makes our company also much more scalable because then we can raise on the holding level with equity the working capital, and then we can finance the scooters with that financing. And a really important milestone for us is that in the latest round in Rotterdam, we had a total financing of 2 million of the assets there. ABN AMRO Lease was one of the partners which financed the fleet, and that's both provides us with a very good validation, as well as the intention to grow together. So yeah, that was a big step for us.
Yeah, I mean, and you have a bank backing you. I mean, that's to other investors, that's probably really worthwhile.
Yeah.
So can you explain a little bit about your plans in Rotterdam? Because that's very new. How are you going to approach that market?
Well, the good thing is that we already have a plan, a draaiboek. We know from our experiences in Amsterdam, which we also written down, of course, what is being needed in order to make your operations and your logistics very lean, scalable, and efficient. So with that knowledge, we were already able to incorporate that from actually before starting in Rotterdam in 2 or 3 weeks' time. In terms of marketing, we have a different approach. In Amsterdam, we knew that we wanted to scale up a little bit less aggressively because we needed to fine-tune everything. And then we didn't do a lot of marketing because we are currently at the tops of the amount of rides we can do on a daily basis. But then in Rotterdam, we want to show, also because we have more vehicles, that we can scale up more rapidly. So we put a lot of marketing effort in 3 weeks' time in order to show how fast we can make it aware to the broad public in Rotterdam.
So how many scooters do you have in Amsterdam currently?
108.
And how much will you have in Rotterdam?
324.
So Rotterdam is going to be a much more important market for you, or are you going to
Yeah.
scale up in Amsterdam as well?
Well, we want to scale up in Amsterdam as well, but for the moment that's not possible due to the regulatory issues with the city of Amsterdam.
Can you explain?
Yeah, so when we entered the Amsterdam market late August 2017, we entered the market with a very we put a lot of thought in how to prevent nuisances, and we did that also in collaboration, like speaking a lot with the municipality of Amsterdam, what to think about.
Yeah. You consulted basically with them how you could do
exactly,
it in a
we put a lot of their
sufficient
input into our way of modus operandi. But at the same time, there was also this introduction of a lot of bike sharing schemes, partly from Dutch entrepreneurs, but also some of the large Chinese entrepreneurs, and they didn't put a lot of effort in it.
Yeah, they just basically dumped their bikes on the road, right?
Exactly, yeah. And there are two fundamental issues with the bike sharing schemes as we have seen it in the past. And one thing is that most of the bikes are very cheap. So a bike from China is about $50, and it's more expensive to actually repair it, get it out of the physical domain, repair it and place it back, than to place a new one into the physical domain. So there's already one issue, because then you get a lot of zwerffietsen. Bikes laying around in town.
There's no English word for that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, and the other one, and that's even more important one, because we can see the same kind of problem with the electric steps, which are called the electric scooters in the US. They have the same problem, is that you cannot...
Like which companies?
Like Bird, like Lime Bike, Spin, and I think there's also one starting in Amsterdam, or wants to start in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
But anyway, they have the same problem as the bikes, and that is that you cannot pinpoint lost ownership. And the reason for that is that while our electric scooters, just like cars, are very heavy, they weigh about 120 kilograms, so you cannot pick them up and put them on the sidewalk, throw them away. And that is something you can do with the bikes and also with the e-step. So even though the customers of the bike sharing companies might park their bikes in a bike rack, if it's not being used for 2 days, I don't know, 1 day, 3 days, and I as a neighbor want to put my bike in there, then I will throw it away on the sidewalk and put my own bike in it. But the problem is nobody is responsible, because I as an operator do not know if it's my customer or the client.
But does that also give you a little bit of a nasty image as well alongside of these sharing platforms? Is that something that you noticed?
That's also definitely something which we suffered from a lot, because which is totally understandable for the press and for the general public. It's kind of difficult to see the differences between a bike and an electric scooter, because they have both the wheels, and you get in the whole discussion, the heated discussion, you being generalized with the bike shares. The big difference, however, is that we have not only our scooters are very heavy, but we also have a standard lock which we invented, which put a metal pin through the central stand, so that you cannot move, you cannot push or drag the scooter, so you can actually not place it. And then we have the data which actually shows how often a scooter is wrongly parked. And that data, that proves that we do not cause the nuisances which the bike sharing and the e-steps
You can actually help prevent that, or remove the scooter if it's wrongly parked within hours.
It's even better because it's even better for two simple reasons actually. Because our customers know that we will always be able to trace who has been parking their scooters. We see that the natural parking habits of our customers are better, because it's not anonymous than the
anonymous.
Sorry, big tongue twister.
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to the privately owned scooters or bikes. The other one is that we make use of a technology called geofencing, and geofencing is actually, for people who doesn't know it, it's if you have like Google Maps, then you can make a service area, and within that service area, you can actually use the scooters or not use the scooters. So we can, within our service area, by making use of geofencing, exclude certain parts, where the municipality of Amsterdam says it's forbidden to park scooters. Think about all the parks in Amsterdam. Think about Leidse Square.
Yeah, you don't want to have it dumped in the Vondelpark, right?
Exactly,
Or,
exactly.
Yeah, just right in the middle of Leidseplein.
Yeah, so technology these days allows us to not only mitigate for stuff which we do not want to happen as a municipality, we can actually prevent it because our scooters cannot simply being parked at those places because then you get an error message saying you're out of the service area. So there is no problem in the first place.
So if you had alone time with Femke Halsema, the new mayor of Amsterdam, what would you say to her?
I would say a few things. I would say that we are lagging behind rapidly and significantly in terms of other European cities.
Maybe say Rotterdam is more innovative than Amsterdam in this thing?
No, definitely.
That always helps, you know?
Much more pragmatic city of Rotterdam. But yeah, I can also understand that it's a different city and there's a little bit more public space in Rotterdam. But also if you just compare it, for example, Paris, Berlin, they are further ahead in terms of shared mobility and sustainable mobility solutions in big cities than Amsterdam. So that's one thing. I think that there should be much more focus on allowing experimentation within certain boundaries, because that is something which is really needed in terms of innovation, and that's something which, although everybody tells us that they want to be the sharing city, then you should also allow experimentation. And I think just look at the data. The data will tell you what will work and what doesn't work, and go with the facts.
So about the company, you're talking about data, so you're probably really a data-driven company. So can you share me how many rides are made on a daily basis? How many kilometers? Do you know these things by heart, or can you give some rough estimates?
I do know them by heart, but it's very sensitive information in terms of our how good we do. Because is a very high competition in not only in the European market but also abroad. So I cannot share these kind of facts because that would be very sensitive for our competition. What I can say about it is that that currently we cannot do any more rides on a daily basis per scooter, so on average, than what we are currently doing. And
so that means you have an occupancy rate of 80% or something?
Well, it's not an occupancy rate. Well, what we see is how many rides per bike we can do, and
why is that limited?
Because then we also need to charge the battery, and there is it's a little bit difficult to explain. There's a natural balance between the amount of people who are using my product, and then if they're using my product, then the other people cannot use the product. And we see at the amount of rides we do at the moment that the conversion rate will decline because then there are always too many rides ahead, and then there's no availability.
For instance, I'm near Leidseplein. I want to get a scooter, but there's none available because everybody took them before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So, but you were reaching full capacity. Let's call it that way.
Yeah.
That's also, for a business founder, for a founder of a startup, that must be really frustrating.
It is. It is the most frustrating part, and not only from a commercial business perspective, but also because we see that demand of the public of this sustainable way of transportation is so much higher than what we are able to offer them, and the only reason why we cannot offer them more is because we are being restricted by
regulatory issues. It's a catch-22, and because of that, it's good you were able to raise money for Rotterdam. Yeah. But does this limit your, let's say, roadmap for internationalization as well? Because you need the data of Amsterdam too to raise money again, I guess.
No, that's not really correct, because the data of Amsterdam is so good that we were able to raise the money we needed, including with a bank, to open up Rotterdam. We have a formal approval, so to speak, and a collaboration with the municipality of Rotterdam, because they are really...
Yeah, how did you did that?
Actually just by showing them the data you have, explaining them that this is good for everybody in the city, and then just make very good
guidelines. Something like that.
Yeah, like guidelines about the way we are operating in a city, but we also had a lot of things we oblige ourselves to. So, for example, if a scooter is broken down, we have made an appointment how fast this scooter should be repaired or being...
how fast is that?
That's in Rotterdam. Within 4 days, it should be either be repaired or it should be subtracted from the public environment.
That's pretty decent. I would say that should be done in 24 hours or something if it was the city of Rotterdam, but it's, I think you struck a good deal, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so too, but if you compare that, for example, with all the broken bikes and scooters in the general public, I think it's very quickly. I think things which are more important is the amount of rides we agree to in Rotterdam per vehicle, because then you can find the perfect balance between the amount of vehicles you want to have in the city combined with the demand of the city. And that's totally different than, for example, the bike sharing companies or some of the bike sharing companies which just dumps 10,000 bikes, and it doesn't matter if it's being using once every 5 days or like 3 times a day. That doesn't really matter. And yeah, we see it a little bit differently. We think that a vehicle which is standing still is actually a problem because it's in the way, and a vehicle which is being used from A to B is a solution because it brings somebody there. So make sure that your occupancy rate is high, because then it's the best solution.
Yeah. So you're still quite a young fellow, at least compared to me. How old are you?
30.
Okay. But you're already the CEO of, I think, probably one of the most prolific scale-ups, I can call you scale-ups with 4 million of funding, in the Netherlands, in a very competitive market. But you had quite an unusual career. I mean, you started as an intern at L'Oréal, am I correct?
Yeah.
And then you worked in IT and as a management consultant.
Yeah.
So how did you, and together with your co-founder Maarten Poot, end up in this e-scooter sharing business?
Yeah, so to take it a little bit back, I always knew that I want to be an entrepreneur somewhere along the line, but I also knew that that I needed to learn a lot before actually being able to grow a company.
So business skills, basically.
So business skills, hard business skills. And I was a little bit in doubt if I should go to a fast moving or within consultancy. So I tried the fast moving, didn't like it too much. So then I went to the consultant. I also found out that I find it very important that I can not only have an impact on my own career, but I also want to do something back to society. So that's why I ended up at the healthcare, and I did the consultancy in healthcare. And then me and Maarten, we were back then already roommates. So we discussed a lot of the topics. We thought about, well, should be that something which we can make a business model out of it. And then we came up with shared electric scooters as a solution for a lot of the problems we are currently facing in big cities, not only in the Netherlands, but like worldwide. And then we take the leap of faith and started working full time on it.
Yeah, how did you choose the name? Felyx with a Y.
So we made a list of criteria. One of the criteria was that it had to be pronounced in an international way, because we were thinking already bigger than the Dutch market. It should be a name which is suitable with our target audience, and I think that Felyx goes well with the young professional students.
It's a cool name, let's say. Okay, it's a cool name. You succeeded on that.
Yeah. You can shorten it. So when people say even, I would like to take an Ubertje, I can also say I would like to take a Felyxje. And Felyx in Latin means that it's
the lucky one.
The lucky one, the gezegende, the lucky one.
Yeah, the lucky one. So in terms of operations, how many people do you employ currently?
So we
full-time, FTE?
Yeah, currently 10 people, and from the 1st of October, 2 other guys start. Yeah.
Okay. So you were just explaining you just hired a COO. How did that go?
Yeah.
Chief Operations Officer, right?
Chief Operations Officer, yeah. So, we made a growth plan of Felyx for like 2 years, 5 years, and ahead. And one of the important things for us, as we are currently operating with so many assets, is that you have a guy or a girl which has a proven track record actually in making sure that from an operational perspective, not only on a day-to-day basis, but also more in a strategic way, optimize that.
Yeah, you have to talk to these guys from ABN AMRO. They're not going. I mean, if they see two of these millennial startup hipsters, they're probably going to think, okay, my money is down the drain, right? Or is that, you need like a serious person with a big track record, basically behind you.
How I always tell about people is that when Maarten and I started last year in August with Felyx, we were like a true startup. We were with like few people,
drinking lattes, hanging around in co-working spaces.
We were a little bit more serious
mature
about it,
mature,
serious.
Yeah, okay.
But we were with like a small group of people which had all few years of working experience, and we see that now when we are operating in multiple cities. We hope to launch another city this year in the Netherlands as well.
Yeah.
You need to get more experience on board, which also provides you the validation for the financial partners.
But let's see. I mean, you're doing political lobbying, you're doing all kinds of legal stuff. I mean, you're doing high-level financing with quite difficult things. I mean, if you're running assets on it, so okay.
Yeah. So you need experience to do that. Yeah.
Do you lose any sleep over that? I mean, if I say it like that, it sounds pretty serious, right?
You do lose. I mean, I'm a pretty good sleeper, so I can separate business and private time or like sleep, so that goes quite well. But of course, you have some sleepless nights over issues which you need to solve.
Mostly the regulatory ones or other ones as well?
Other ones as well.
Can you name one?
Of course it's a bit of a cliche, but funding is so important. We are a very capital-intensive company in a capital-intensive industry, so you know that you need a lot of capital. Sometimes when a deal is almost done, it's not done because you cannot find the right commercial aspect, or if you don't agree about the much collateral they would like to have, or one of 1,000 reasons. But the time is ticking. You want to have your certain thresholds, like milestones. That can.
But in the end, you succeeded in raising the capital, so.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you were talking about the competitors, also from other city perspectives. I mean, Paris, Berlin, perhaps Rome, Madrid, Barcelona.
Yeah.
How is it faring right now with scooter sharing platforms?
I think that if you look at the European market, that there's a lot of proof of concept, because in Berlin, in Paris, in Barcelona, in Madrid, there are big similar companies.
Can you name a few?
So in Paris, the City Scoot started. They have about 1,000 scooters, maybe like 1,600 at the moment in Paris. Then you have Coop. Coop is started in Berlin a few years ago, like 2 years ago, I think, or 3 years. They have about 1,000 scooters in Berlin, but they also have 1,000 scooters in Paris. So they try to fight the market in Paris with City Scoot. And then in Barcelona, a company called eCooltra started, and they also turned to Madrid lately.
So, and you have these e-steps coming in as well?
Yeah.
So we just had some news that Taxify, one of the Uber's competitor from Estonia, is actually doing, I think, well, they call it an e-scooter, but it's probably these steps in Paris as well. Yeah. So they're doing the entire, what they call last mile, so you can take a cab somewhere, but even if you have to go any further where a cab can't go, you can take one of their scooters. So is that something that you're looking at as well, maybe partner with taxi startups?
Yeah, definitely. So what we think, and this is also a very good example of the validation you get from the market, it's not only the Taxify, but also Uber is exploring this space.
But are you working together with Uber already?
No, not working together, but we are speaking on a regular basis with different people from Uber, so we also kind of have a good idea about which direction they want to go. And I think in broad lines we see the same kind of direction from the same kind of companies. The Ubers, the Lyfts, the Taxifys, they're like they used to be simply ride-hailing companies, and they expand their reach by becoming more and more platforms of mobility.
Food delivery, parcel delivery in the US.
So I think this is a trend which we're going to see more and more in the future. What we also see is that those companies so far have been low on assets. They don't use assets. They are really a platform. And so once you start using assets, then you need a lot of new expertise, because then you got maintenance, you get the whole shebang. And then you also see that Uber, for example, is working together with a lot of partners. So they started working with Jump, the electric bikes in the US. They partnered up with Lime Bike. That are the e-steps, which are called e-scooters in the US. So yeah, there are numerous of partnerships coming on.
Yeah. So I mean, of this market, this is a huge market. This was a market that wasn't there maybe 3-4 years ago. What do you see for the foreseeable future? Will there be a big shakeout? Will there be a consolidation? What's going on? Will you be acquired? Or are you going to acquire others?
Yeah, well, that's the end game. That's the plan. Now, so what I see is that we are in a hyper competitive market operating. So the thing which is going to be key is speed. So speed to expand the execution. That's the most important part. It's our intention.
But where can you go? Can you go to Antwerp, or do you want to compete with the others in Berlin, or you want to go to Vienna?
If we take one step back, I think that big cities in general, they're only growing. So more and more cities are going to use sustainable micro-mobility. And that can be in terms of electric steps for certain rides. It can be electric scooters like the mopeds we have for certain rides.
Or bicycles.
Or bikes, depending on what each customer would like to have. We think that it's not that the big fish eat the small, it's the fast which eats the slow. So we sincerely believe that we have very good papers to be the one which can outmaneuver the other ones, because of the way we structured our company, because of the people and the talent we acquired within the company. But it is very important to grow rapidly. I cannot foresee if in the end Uber comes or Lyft comes or one of the competitors comes and say we would like to buy your whole market. That's not what our intention is. We would like to make the company as big as possible ourselves, because then we think we can add the most value to it. And then we have to see in the future where the market will.
But still, if you need to expand, you need new, fresh cities, and most favorably cities that are big, that are in dire need of these kind of micro-mobility solutions, as you like to call it. Wow, great word for jargon, or bullshit bingo, whatever you try to do. But I understand where you're coming from. So, but what kind of cities can you go to? Are you looking to Belgium? Are you looking towards maybe Italy, or maybe to the UK, or so Nordics, perhaps?
Again, as you can imagine, because of the sensitivity of that kind of information, I cannot tell you which cities we're currently looking at.
But can you give us a little hint?
No, not really, actually. No, but we do look.
No, but Belgium seems, I mean, logical, right?
I think that like Belgian cities, German cities, French cities, Scandinavian cities, all cities which have mobility issues, which have the similar size of like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, which are actually kind of small.
I'm going
cities
to Brussels next week. I mean, you don't want to go with a car into Brussels. Exactly. I mean, it's excruciating.
Yeah, but that also
Antwerp,
holds for
exactly the same.
Exactly, but that also holds for like for like all the larger cities in Europe. So
you can top 5 top tier cities of any country.
And you can therefore you can also see what the potential is in this market, because there is so much space left for everybody to.
Well, if I'm thinking about China,
the US market as well.
And there's still, there are probably maybe 50 cities in the US who are eligible for these kind of.
At least.
So, and let's not forget the rural area. Okay, so you have a lot of work to do, I guess.
We do.
So, in the end, what's going to happen if we talk with you again in like 5 years or so?
Yeah. All right. So,
who are you? What are you doing? Are you still with this, or?
Yeah. So I hope and I strongly believe that in 5 years' time, me and Martin are still the owners of Felyx. I believe that we are. Operational in most, if not all, European cities for a minimum, and that you can also use Felyx,
the brand,
the brand combined with other mobility providers, because we really strongly believe in the complementarity of regular public transport combined with last
mile is the phrase there, right?
Exactly.
So getting to your end point.
And that will be all integrated into one payment subscription.
Okay. Quinten, I would like to thank you very much for this great interview, and all the luck with Felyx.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.